welcome to PixelTunesradio,
a podcast where we have fun
talking about video games
and video game music.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Ed.
And you're here listening to our episode 64, Summer Jamz.
Yeah, we should have done N64 stuff for episode 64. We got at least one N64 track today.
That would have been good.
Yeah. But, we're releasing this show, June 22nd, so right smack in the beginning of summer.
Right.
This will be a ton of songs that are perfect for riding around with the top down or your windows down or blasting out your windows at your house to annoy all your neighbors. Just lots of good summer fun beach party style songs.
Yeah, this is the perfect podcast to drive around and listen to. Like, I picture driving across, the San Francisco Bridge, just top down, or your moonroof, sunroof open, and you're just hanging out, chilling, listening to some cool tracks that are chill, but also kind of energetic and exciting as well.
So before, obviously, we get into all of our music, we have our PixelChat segment. We only got one question this time, and this was sent in from Chris Baker, who's at DOSman711 on Twitter. And so we had a question last episode about modern games that would make good retro games, basically like a demake of it. So Chris wanted to turn it around the other way. He said, which classic game do you think would be well served by a modern remake or sequel?
Okay. That's a good question. I think that it depends. Are we talking a game that's just kind of remade, if they remade Contra and just made it 2.5D, that sort of thing?
We said modern remake or sequel,
okay.
So I guess it's pretty open.
Okay. Well, I've always wanted to see a sequel to Astronex, so I would go with Astronex.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool. I mean, I think they could do a lot with it too, and they could, of course, improve upon the awful story, but I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it now, it almost seems like an Astronex modern game would be like Dark Souls, because you have that energy meter just like you do in Astronex, by the way, is how it's pronounced.
Astronex.
But with a little bit more of a lighthearted take on it. But yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Okay.
I'd like to see just more modern updates of a lot of the old classic shoot-'em-ups that have kind of, just been forgotten about. Phalanx, a new, very modern style Gradius would be cool, or an R-Type. Something like that. Shmups have just really gotten kind of ignored lately, so
yeah.
Something that would be really fun, keeping the same style gameplay, either horizontal or vertical, without, needing to do a 360-degree range of motion or anything like that. But just something that could kind of take advantage of modern hardware, but also keep a good classic feel. Plus, obviously, the soundtracks would have to be amazing as well.
Yeah, I'd also say beat-em-ups, too, have kind of gone by the wayside. I mean, they kind of trickle out now and then, but...
Mostly indie stuff.
Yeah.
Or the Ninja Turtles game.
Right. There hasn't been any sort of beat-em-up return that's been huge and has innovated the platform. I mean, pretty much beat-em-ups have stayed the same since Final Fight and Double Dragon. So maybe seeing, a new Final Fight that's not Final Fight Streetwise.
Yeah. That would be
come
cool.
up. That'd be really cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that question, Chris.
Great question.
As usual, you can send us questions for us to answer at the beginning of every show. Send your emails to pixeltunesradio@gmail.com, and we will answer your question on our PixelChat segment. Now, we have one clarification corner before we get into the music. Our friend Wee Guy, Nico, who was on two of our past episodes, actually. He's a great guest. He's really familiar with the Mortal Kombat and Battle Clash games, so it's nice to have a fellow fan out there that really got into these games. I accidentally mispronounced the name of the special chip that was in the cartridge. It's actually the OBC1. And not the OSD one. So, my bad on that. I must have just written it down wrong. And then also I mentioned that there were infinite bombs in Mortal Kombat. There's actually, you can have up to 5 bombs in your inventory. I guess you get 1 bomb per boss that you defeat.
Right.
But I just don't use the bombs that much. I like to just shooty all the time.
Right.
So I never really ran out, so I didn't grasp the fact that it was actually a limited inventory. So, 2 very small corrections on my part. And thank you, Nico, for reaching out to us and clarifying that for us.
Word.
So, summertime and gaming.
Yes.
Kind of like peanut butter and chocolate, man. They're just, you spend a lot of time, because Connecticut sucks in the summer. I mean, we have listeners from all over the world, and Connecticut's one of those kind of like unique states where we get like below 0 Fahrenheit temperatures in the wintertime and extremely like skin crackingly dry. But then in the summertime, we get upper 90s, sometimes into the hundreds, and it's 90% humidity.
It's always humidity.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
You can sit outside in the shade and still be sweating your butt off, just standing still.
Plus, I hate bugs.
It's oppressive.
Ugh.
And we get a lot of mosquitoes too.
Yeah.
So we're close to the shore. We're only about a half an hour from the ocean.
Right.
So, we get a lot of bugs, we get a lot of humidity. So we spend a lot of time indoors with air conditioning, gaming our sweaty butts off.
That's right.
So summertime gaming has always been kind of a big thing for me when I was a kid. My bedroom with my brother, it was in the basement, so it was very humid down there. We always had the AC running, and we would just sit down there and play games, and every once in a while my mom would be like, you guys need to go outside, and we'd go out for like 15 minutes and then come back completely covered in sweat, and she'd be like, okay, fine, go play video games.
I think that's kind of lost on the current generation of kids growing up. They don't really have that outdoors time in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think some do, but I think for the most part, kids are... Why would kids play outside? They have video games. Like,
yeah.
Like I played video games quite a bit when I was a kid, but I would also run outside and go, play sports and hang out and run around and be a kid. So I think that's important to have that balance nowadays, as far as that goes.
Yeah,
but,
we send our kids out as much as possible.
Right.
We've got a playscape in the backyard. We always set up the sprinkler because it waters the grass and it gives them something to cool down with at the same time.
True.
So, we don't want them to spend the entire time inside playing video games. It's not healthy.
No.
But, we do have some great summer gaming memories. And a lot of these games that I picked were games that I did play, like, over the summertime and kind of, so I have that feel, plus the very summery song, so it kind of fits the bill pretty well.
Interesting. I went a completely opposite direction.
A lot of your songs are more like desert kind of songs.
They have like Arabian vibes, like kind of like drive around with the top down. Like this is music that I would cruise around. Like I said, San Francisco, driving across the bridge or whatever.
I don't know. You were concentrating more on the heat while I was concentrating on summer memories.
Yeah. I think that's true.
So speaking of Arabian music, let's kick it off with our first game of the day.
That's right. Always a good way to start off a podcast with Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.
I knew you'd do that.
This is Scorching Dunes, Sunburn Island by Mr. Jake Kaufman.
Hit it.
welcome back. That was Shantae and the Pirate's Curse.
And that was the Wii U and 3DS. Well, that came out on all sorts of different things.
Came out on Amazon Fire TV, Steam, Wii U, 3DS, Xbox One, and PS4 way back in 2014. And again, that track was Scorching Dunes, Sunburn Island by Mr. J. Kaufman.
So Way Forward was pretty ambitious with this game. Amazon Fire TV, huh?
But such a good game. I had so much fun playing through this. You know, you talk about summer memories. I remember being, like, just locked away in my room.
When you were a wee kid back 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. I remember playing through, like, Zelda Link to the Past and, like, Chrono Trigger and Mario, like, Yoshi's Island, like, that type of stuff. Super Nintendo was, like, key back in those days because I still have very vivid memories of playing through those types of games during the summertime, because a lot of them came out, like especially Chrono Trigger came out in the summer.
Yeah.
So I remember just sitting down, plunking down, and really just playing through the game, like doing nothing but playing through that game and playing it until I beat it. So when this Shantae and the Pirate's Curse game came out, you know, I'm a pretty big fan of the Shantae series overall, but I finally sat down and played through this one this past winter and just fell in love with it. It just felt like such a classic game. Like, it felt like a real return to those days when I would just, like, not stop thinking about a game. Like, you know, I would sit back down after taking a very short break from the game. Like, I would, you know, go to work or whatever and then come back, and then the next day, like, go in the basement, in the PixelTunes basement.
Creepy castle basement?
Yes, and just start, you know, picking up right from where I left off and remembering everything, and it just has that real classic, like, platforming feel.
Cool.
The
sprite work really reminded me of, like, Paul Robertson's stuff.
Yeah.
Very animated, you know, retro-styled, but definitely using new technology it's like tons of hand-drawn artwork.
Oh, yeah.
It looked really good.
No, it looks great.
The song itself, so why did you pick this particular track out of all of Kaufman's soundtrack?
Well, this is probably one of my favorite songs on this particular soundtrack. You know, I picked this song just because it's got that heat feel to it that I want to call it, like...
Well, the name kind of gives it away, too.
Right, Scorching Dunes, right, Sunburn Island. Yeah, I don't know, like, I feel like this is, like, Arabian funk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's got those really awesome Arabian overtones. One instrument that really kind of made my ears kind of light up was the accordion, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. You hear it, like, really kind of subtly, and I thought that was really good.
There's a band out there called Beats Antique, and they write music that sounds a lot like this.
Oh, yeah?
One of my favorite bands, actually. So this really reminded me of a lot of their stuff. So if you like this track, definitely check them out. They're all over YouTube.
Cool.
They basically take old world instruments, you know, old Arabian instruments, Persian, and then use them in conjunction with more updated, like, synth bass and program drums, and just literally like this song. So It sounds just like it. I really like I said, you know, the combination of that old world and new school instrumentation. And of course it's Kaufman. I mean, so he's got the chops to pull literally any kind of music in the world off. You know, that solo, like, right towards the middle is really, that gets really, really funky. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of goes back into this little Arabian groove and then flows right back into the funk again. It kind of juggles the two back and forth very effectively.
Oh, it's a very smooth transition between the two. So, yeah, this track is one of my favorites on the soundtrack. And, you know, the music throughout this game is set to the tone of the level, too. So when you're playing through this level, you're going through and it's a very hot, scorching desert. And you're running through, killing all these desert-related enemies, like giant cactuses and giant scorpion busty girls, and, you know, like, it's just crazy. As far as the game goes, I mean, we talked a little bit about this game.
We talk about Shantae a lot on the show.
We do. We are,
you talk a lot about Shantae.
Yeah, I talk a lot about Shantae.
I still have never played, I've played snippets of each one, but I've never actually played through. I'm going to have to sit down and go through the story at some point.
Missing out.
No, I know.
Well, the story as far as this game goes is it's a direct follow-up to Risky's Revenge, which was the previous title that came out on DSi. And essentially what's going on is the town is being taken over by this character named Ammo Baron. Essentially, the town's being taken over by Ammo Baron, and meanwhile, Risky Boots, who is your, like, arch nemesis, shows up and asks Shantae for her help. Now, Shantae doesn't have her powers anymore. She's not a half genie. She's just a normal mortal. All the Tinkerbats, which are like the main enemies in the game, have all been turned into these things called Cacklebats. The whole purpose of everything is you're supposed to go through these hub-like levels and collect with this genie bottle all the dark energy, all the dark magic. And you do that by killing Cacklebats. It's pretty cool. I mean, awesome. the whole game is just really well done, and I'm really excited to see what they do with Shantae Half Genie Hero, which is coming out in September of 2016.
Excellent. I'm sure that's going to include another Kaufman soundtrack, so I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to our next track. This is my first pick. This is the Neo Geo CD version of Windjammers. Welcome back. That was Flying Power Disc, which plays on the Beach Court stage of Windjammers, which came out in 1995 for the Neo Geo CD, and that track was composed by Seiichi Hamada, Tomoyoshi Sato, and arranged by Masaaki Iwasaki for the Neo Geo CD.
Now, how does the arcade version of this sound as compared to this? Because this sounds very... I got a very Sega CD atmosphere from it, like all live instrumentation, kind of like Zuntata type stuff.
Yep. The Neo Geo version is, it uses the YM2610.
Right.
So this was kind of like the era of the Neo Geo games where they were really, because it's an FM chip in there, but it also has sampling capabilities similar to what the SNES does.
Right.
So there's a lot of really good earlier Neo Geo soundtracks that took good advantage of the FM channels. This game took advantage more of the sampling channels, and they're very low quality samples, so it sounds really tinny. The drums are way too loud, at least from all of the emulated versions of the game that I've seen. They really overpower the soundtrack. I really like this tune. Actually, I originally heard it on the regular Neo Geo arcade version of the game, but then realized that the Neo Geo CD also had a version and really enjoyed it much more than the regular AAS version. So,
cool.
So that's why I picked this particular version. This definitely reminded me more of Outrun. We have an Outrun track coming up in a little bit, but just a very kind of wind through your hair, driving down the highway kind of a feel that you were talking about earlier. And the game is fun too. I mean, it's literally competitive
Frisbee.
Pong-style Frisbee.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a beach atmosphere. There's palm trees. All the characters have, pads and tank tops and shorts.
It's a real summer
wraparound
game.
Sunglasses, and it just makes you feel like it's summer.
But everybody's wearing really 90s clothing.
Oh, yeah.
Neon colors everywhere.
Totally. This game is a lot of fun. Mike hasn't played it before, but I'm trying to get him to definitely check it out. I have it on the Neo Geo CD, so we should...
Yeah.
Actually, they say the Neo Geo CD version is actually better because it contains a few extra modes, plus has the better soundtrack. There's like Windjammer Bowling, which you throw frisbees at bowling pins to try to knock them down. Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. Essentially, two players face off. It's almost kind of like a tennis court. There's a net in the middle, and you throw the frisbee back and forth and try to get it into the goals behind each player. So a lot of times there will be different goals behind them of different sizes, and each one is worth a different amount of points, usually 3 points or 5 points. And then you play to whatever point amount you determine at the beginning of the game, 11 points or 21 points or whatever. There's super moves kind of similar to Super Dodgeball. You can ricochet the frisbee off of the walls to try to mix your opponent up.
And it'll pop up in the air, and
then you can charge up. When you catch it, you can do your super move. Every character has different super moves. It's very frenetic. It's back and forth. The learning curve is very easy. Just start catching and throw them. You don't have to worry about what controls do what. That's just pass and catch. 2 buttons plus your directional. But then you can also put a little bit of spin on the frisbee. You can kind of, press up or down while you're throwing to get it to arch. So there's a lot of little advanced techniques that you can use to get your guy to do some tricks to try to get the frisbee past the other person. Easy to learn, lifetime to master kind of deal.
Right. So as far as the composers go, Seiichi Hamada has worked on quite a bit, mostly done sound effects for Shenmue and Shenmue 2. He also worked with R&D sound for AM2 on Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing in 2010. Aero Elite Combat Academy, he was the composer of that soundtrack. Sega Ages 2500, he did Volume 19, which was Fighting Vipers. He did all the sounds, or the sound creator as he's been credited. Virtua Tennis 4, he was credited as the sound artist. Tomoyoshi Sato,
he was actually credited as Tom in this game.
Yeah, Tom. He goes by Tom, and Tomoyoshi.
He started off back in 1990 with Super Burger Time, worked on RoboCop 2 in 91, Captain America and the Avengers.
A lot of like Data East stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Night Slashers, he did some Virtua Tennis, so he did a lot of Sega stuff. And then further on, worked on some more of the licensed games like Hi Hi Puffy Yami-Yumi, Finding Nemo, and then finally threw in the towel when he was forced to do the game for Bolt in 2008.
That movie was a good movie, though.
Yeah, no, I know it was. And RoboCop 2 and Captain America kind of significant because this is one of those rare Neo Geo games that was actually published by Data East.
Right.
And they didn't really do very many Neo Geo games.
That's true.
And when you look this game up on the internet, you see that a lot of people consider it to be one of the most fun Neo Geo games ever made. So it's a shame that Data East didn't do more of these titles on this console.
Kind of like the Neo Turf golf
Neo
game.
Turf Masters?
Yeah, Neo Turf Masters. It's kind of like that in the sense. It's like arcade style sports games.
Yeah. And just really fun to play. You don't need to be a fan of the sport in order to enjoy the game.
Right. As far as Masaaki Iwasaki, he worked on quite a bit, actually. He mostly was with Data East working on game sounds for RoboCop. He did sounds on Makai Hakenden Shada, and he also did Heracles no Echo 2, Titan no Mitsubo. And he also did Bad Dudes, Al Unser Jr. Turbo Racing. He was a sound programmer on Heavy Barrel, Metal Max he did sound programming on, Tumble Pop, Side Pocket he did sound on, Chelnob Atomic Runner, which we know, High Seas Havoc he did sound effects, Dashing Desperados, Windjammers, Street Slam, list goes on and on and on and on. He also did sound effects for Mother 3, which I did not know.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, he worked on Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
I don't believe it.
Believe it.
His last couple games were Kirby Mass Attack and Kirby and the Rainbow Curse in 2015. He worked on sound effects and sound design for those, respectively.
That's right, as well as games like Zombie Revenge, which is a fun little arcade third-person shooter, arcade-style game. It's cool. Really good stuff.
All right, let's get retro for a little while.
Sounds good to me. We're going to go right back to the year of 1990. This is the NES classic Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. This is Zone A, Zone C, and Zone E by Harumi Fujita. welcome back. That was Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers for the Nintendo. 1990 was the year of release. Zone A, Zone C, and Zone E were the tracks, and that was by Harumi Fujita. I love this game.
Yeah, not a fan of this one myself.
No, really? No?
Never really got into it.
Did you watch the cartoon? Probably not.
I did. I was a little old for it.
Okay.
I just basically watched it because my little brother and sister watched it.
Right.
But, I was already like 13 years old by this time. So.
I was already like 75.
Taking my dentures out and soaking them while I watched this one.
No, I mean, I was a kid when I was watching this, so, I was at that age. So, no, I love Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. One of my favorite cartoons of all time, actually. As far as the game, I remember playing this one, like, not really summertime, but just like in general. Just this was always in my Nintendo. Yeah. Always.
I can see why you picked this song, though, because it's like only a 20-second loop, but it packs so much surf rock into it in that 20 seconds. It's just a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, it's just great surf rock, awesome energy, really good stuff.
Well, it's Harumi Fujita, too. So any similarities you might see with this and like the Mega Man 3 soundtrack, you'll definitely be on the money there because she composed that as well.
I also kind of picked this, believe it or not, for the levels, not Zone C, because I totally forgot that it was in Zone C. But Zone A and Zone E are both like outdoorsy levels. Zone A, you're kind of like climbing through, as either Chip or Dale climbing through this tree area, and you're just climbing from branch to branch. And I just remember being a kid and playing through this level, and I remember like getting really frustrated because these flying squirrels would come down diagonally and you just didn't see them. And so I would always try to rush and jump like really super quick and do like almost like speed run style. And I would always get screwed up because of the stupid flying squirrels. Not nowadays, but like definitely when I was a kid, I remember getting very frustrated with this.
This game always seemed to me like it should have freely scrolling levels, like you'd be able to go left and right, but it's one of those games where you can only go
one way.
Super Mario Brothers. Once you go in one direction, you can't go back.
Right.
I don't know. That always just kind of tripped me up, I guess, because so many games at like by the time 1990 rolled around were able to do that.
It wasn't like Mega Man in the sense that you could go backwards in a screen, like you could always go back down or you can go back up.
Yeah, the levels were pretty linear.
Right.
So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of branching paths or anything like that, so it was pretty much get from point A to point B, very Castlevania-ish in that sense, so... But I mean, just the soundtrack itself is great. There's so many great songs on this soundtrack. This song in particular, I always felt was a bit too repetitive in the sense that you hear it too many times throughout the game. So I kind of was always like, all right, Zone A and Zone E, it makes sense because it's an outdoor surf rock style song. But to hear it in Zone C, a library, I don't know, it just...
No, I would expect something a little more classical, maybe like, a little more mellow.
I would say the song from the kitchen, when you're in the kitchen, is like perfect for Zone C. Because, kitchen, library, they're both kind of like relaxed, chill places, not really like a lot going on. Whereas, the outdoor levels, the surf rock mentality and atmosphere and the bright, sunny skies and everything, it fits really well.
Yeah, it kind of draws you out of the game. But, at this point with the NES, they weren't really all about mood in these kind of games too much.
True.
Not as much as they are kind of in more modern games today. So they probably just said, oops, we forgot to write a song for this particular level. We've already used this song twice, why not reuse it again?
Or it could have been limitations.
Yeah, too. Because it is such a short loop, maybe it freed up a little more memory for other graphics in the game. Who knows?
Yeah, did you have any favorite Disney NES game at all?
No, I really kind of ignored them.
Really?
I never played DuckTales. I never played Chip and Dale.
I didn't like DuckTales that much.
Darkwing Duck I never played.
Everyone's going to grab their pitchforks, but I just wasn't a fan of DuckTales. The cartoon was okay.
I like the cartoon. The cartoon, that was the first Disney cartoon to come out. So I was still young enough where I watched DuckTales. And then once they started on with Goof Troop and Chip and Dale, I was a little too old for that stuff by that point. I'd stopped watching.
It was DuckTales, Chip and Dale.
Yeah.
I think Tailspin was next.
Right.
Darkwing Duck, and then I think Goof Troop, and then from then on, I kind of stopped watching.
I was middle school.
Yeah, I was too old for it at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the games were always
Bonkers, good. I never watched that.
The collaboration between Disney and Capcom for those games was a great fit because they made some really good games.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on. I'm so happy to finally play a track from this game because I love this soundtrack. This is Ollie King. Came out in 2004 in the arcade. This is Border 70 by Hideki Naganuma. Snap, welcome back. That was Border 70 from Hideki Naganuma from the game Ollie King, released in 2004, sadly only in the arcades.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, this runs on the Chihiro board, which is a series of arcade games that are actually based on the original Xbox hardware, believe it or not.
Interesting.
And so Xbox emulation is very hard to do. It hasn't really been done successfully yet. So you can't find this game working in like MAME or anywhere else. They haven't ported it to any other consoles for that reason. It really sucks because I really wanted to play this game. This soundtrack, I want to thank our previous guest, Scott, for letting me borrow it from him because it is phenomenal. Every single track on this game is just this same high energy, very gritty, like live drums, but sped up with organs and guitars and vocal samples and everything just kind of blended into one mess of awesome.
Yeah, the sound effects for the voiceover effects are pretty cool. I mean, I think they sync really well, and this has a total like 90s, like late 90s, early 2000s like funk vibe to it, so it's really cool. Hideki Naganuma actually has been a long-time Sega guy. He has been composing for quite some time, starting with in 1998 Shouju Kakume Utena, Itsuka Kakume Sareru Monogatari. He did voice editing. That was actually his very first job before he then began work on Hip Jog Jog, which he composed with Kenichi Tokoi. Then he jumped on Sega Rally 2 for the Dreamcast, Atsumare Guru Guru Onsen, and then JRA Pat for the Dreamcast. Jet Set Radio was his big, like, that was like his breakout.
Knew his name.
Exactly,
yeah.
Right. Daytona USA 2001, he worked on sound effects. Jet Set Radio Future, he came back, did another game, and then he did Ollie King in 2003, J-League Pro Soccer Club, O Tsukuro 3, did Sonic Rush with Teruhiko Nakagawa, which we played way back on I think it was episode 60? We talked about Sonic Rush before. Yakuza, he did voice editing on, Sega Rally 2006, Super Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz, and believe it or not, he was supervisor on Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
Yeah, no, he's quite a talented dude.
Yeah, he did Beatmania IIDX 20 Tricoro, and then Yakuza 5, so he was still doing Sega, Konami.
Yeah.
Then he jumped on did Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U. He was supervisor there. So his last game was Hover Revolt of Gamers, which he did composition and arrangement with Cedric Menendez.
Yeah, and if you guys remember the Sonic Rush soundtrack, it has a very similar sound. That was actually a DS game, so if you imagine or I think we talked about it at the time, where he was able to kind of digitize and sequence his trademark Naganuma sound, which is what he calls his music, into a DS format. But then this is what his music sounds like when he's got literally no constraints. He works with samples for the most part anyway, so all of these instruments that you're hearing are mainly just sampled instruments that are kind of manipulated and thrown together in sequence, and especially like the vocals, which is why I think he's so good at putting vocal samples into his music, because he's already very good at placing instrument samples, and he's just got that kind of knack for it. So he's done all kinds of stuff. He's even been a bartender and a DJ, so he knows that kind of party scene. He knows what kind of music gets people going, so that really comes through in this game.
Yeah, he was originally planning on trying to be a singer-songwriter more towards like the J-pop world.
So glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, well, he stopped doing that in 98, and that's when he sent in his demo tapes to Sega.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, this guy's great, let's bring him on. So he's been working on music. I mean, he's like a lifelong composer. He's been working on music since age 5 when he was playing the electronic organ.
Just got a natural talent for it. So, Ollie King, the game itself, I've unfortunately never played. It's kind of a spiritual sequel to Sega's Top Skater,
right?
Which is like the game that I make a beeline to whenever I enter an arcade. For some reason, I just love that game. You hop on a skateboard, it's got some controls and levers underneath it, and you head down a downhill race, basically, and you're racing against the clock. You do like kicks over jumps, and how accurately you kick off the jumps is how fast you go down the hill. You can flip your footing to go, sharper turns and left or right, do grinds and all sorts of stuff. It actually feels like you're really skating once you get the knack of it.
Yeah, they used a much more simplistic version of this in Sonic Adventure 2 for the City Escape song.
Yeah, exactly.
For that level, yeah.
Ollie King basically speeds up the game by about 1,000,000,000%. You're racing against 4 other people in this huge downhill slalom through cities and countrysides and just factories and going over crazy jumps. It's kind of like they just basically put Top Skater on steroids.
Right.
Took out the crappy punk soundtrack and threw in some amazing Naganuma music. So I've never, like I said, ever seen the arcade version in real life. But I'm still looking for one, so
cool.
Maybe sooner or later I'll come across one, and I'll never leave that arcade ever again. All right, what's next on our list, Michael?
Our next game in our Summer Jam Spectacular is Super Valis 4 for the Super Nintendo. This came out in 1993 in the US and 92 in Japan. The track is called Vecanti. It is the first level, and it's by Junta. And as far as this track goes, I think we should just slow it down a bit. It's a real nice little jazz number. Like chill, relax.
Nice.
Welcome back. That was Super Valis 4 for the Super Nintendo. Came out in 1993 in the US and 92 in Japan. The track is called Vecanti, and that was by Junta.
Vecanti sounds like a nice red wine.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Drink a glass of Vecanti, please.
This game is definitely I guess you could say this is like the Dracula X of the Valis.
Oh my god, I was totally going to say that too.
Yeah. The original version came out on PC Engine. and it was a lot more of a, I guess you could say, like a vibrant, deeper game. You could play as multiple different characters, and there was anime cutscenes and everything. The game itself follows on the events of Valis 3, and
I'm under the impression that it's actually pronounced Valis.
Yeah.
However, there's some argument about that, and I don't really feel like arguing about pronunciation this episode.
Cool.
Since we do that every episode.
That is true.
However you want to pronounce it is fine with me.
Yeah, I think it's Valis, but that's, I don't know, my American
I've heard
accent.
it both ways. Anyhow, continue.
So, not much to say as far as the plot itself goes. There's a big, like, intro cutscene in the beginning. It's pretty convoluted. I'm not very familiar with the Valis series.
Yeah.
So...
And it's kind of watered down in the Super Nintendo version, too,
Yes.
because there are animated cutscenes in the PC Engine CD and TurboGrafx CD version, so SNES, they're kind of, like, condensing it.
Yeah.
So it's less coherent.
There was a magic system that was originally in the PC Engine version, and they replaced it with weapons instead. So basically you go around and you collect these icons, and you can activate one of the icons, and then you have a certain, like, limited amount of that weapon to use for your main attack. And so you'll always have, like, an infinity power-up shots.
It's kind of like Metal Slug, where you're picking up ammo for different guns.
Yeah.
And then you switch back to your main when you're out of ammo.
You have a sword that you run around with, and you fight with this sword. You play as this character named Rena, and so she always has a sword that she's using, but you can use,
I believe it's pronounced Rhina. No, I'm just messing.
this guy. So, yeah, actually a lot of levels were removed from this game, but they did add a level that was kind of like a mix, like a kind of like a reborn version of a level from, like, the second half of the...
It's not a nice level, is it?
No.
Good.
No, it's a castle level, but it's... I don't know, it's kind of a butchered port. I mean, in the sense that Dracula X is a butchered port of a Rondo of Blood, so if I was to recommend for you to play a version of this Valis game, I'd probably say go with the PC Engine version, but I don't know. I think that this version's still pretty good. Musically, the track is just so smooth.
This is your one Castlevania song of the episode.
Yeah,
you always pick one that sounds like it.
It's good stuff, though. I mean, it's got that saxophone in the beginning that kind of draws you in. It's just very
those
lush.
violins in the background. You can easily tell what the instruments are supposed to be, which is always nice in a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah.
The sound set is good.
I would say this is less Castlevania, more RPG-ish. Especially those horns more towards the later part of the song. It just kind of gives off this, like, very vibrant feel to it, very, like, soothing and calm. So
kind of galloping percussion in that little breakdown in the middle too.
Yeah.
I really like where the open hi-hat hits along with the snare and the bass at the same time. It sounds like a very authentic kind of rock hit.
Right, very similar to what we were talking about previously with Mega Man X3. The cymbals kind of get cut off at points.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just a Super Nintendo thing. I'm not really sure, but that always kind of bothered me a little bit about this track. But man, that saxophone in the beginning, that's what really drew me in. That's what kind of made me pick this, because I could totally picture myself again driving down like a bridge or something, just wind in my hair, just awesome. So it's good stuff. The game is really fun. I do recommend you check it out. Again, I haven't played the PC Engine version, but Super Valis 4 is a pretty good introduction if you're looking into getting into the Valis series. So it's cool stuff.
It was composed by Junta. It's an alias that we're not too... Well, the internet doesn't seem to even really know who this person was. The only credits we have for Junta is this game, Super Valis 4, and Doomsday Warrior. And that's literally it. So 2 cool Super Nintendo games with some decent soundtracks. But ta-da! That's our information.
Let's move on to our next game.
Keeping it with the Super Nintendo.
Yes, and keeping it with the funk.
Oh, and keeping it with the Summer Jams.
Yes.
Super Adventure Island. I mentioned last episode we had to do this soundtrack.
Really did,
it was just kind of a prerequisite for the show.
We really could have just played this whole soundtrack.
Seriously. So obviously Yuzo Koshiro was behind this one. This one is called Ice Groove.
And this came out in 1992 for the Super Nintendo.
And we're back. That was Ice Groove from Yuzo Koshiro from the game Super Adventure Island, released by Hudson Soft on the SNES in 1992. Yeah, okay, so I picked an ice level. Shut up.
So chill. So cool.
Absolutely.
So groovy. Man, just this whole soundtrack. It's just like early 90s hip-hop meets like...
A little bit of house,
a little bit of house,
rap,
a little bit of New Jack Swing.
A little bit of everything.
Oh, it's good stuff. I love the Pac-Man samples. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
He uses a lot of sliding notes in this particular track. Like, towards the end, you get that solo that almost feels like it was composed on a theremin. You know, very swirly and up and down.
Yeah.
You get this little staccato kind of almost saxophone. The bass grooves in this soundtrack, every single one is totally different.
Totally great.
Everyone is totally awesome.
Yep.
The bass grooves are what make these songs what they are, I think. And to say nothing about the drum kit, which is totally authentic.
Oh, yeah.
Sharp hi-hats. You know, the game itself is a fairly basic game. It doesn't use a lot in the way of graphics. There's not a lot of tile sets and different kinds of graphics, so I think, you know, that was almost purposeful to free up a lot of memory. Like, I consider this game almost like a Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack delivery vehicle more than anything else.
The game is fun, though.
It is fun.
The soundtrack, I will say, you could put this on a stereo in the car, and if you're riding around with somebody who's not familiar with video game music, they'd be like, oh, what is this? This is really good.
Yeah,
and it'd be like, it's Yuzo Koshiro. Like,
you almost would think it was a CD-based game.
Exactly. Especially those drums. Just, like, really rich-sounding, like, drum kit. Like, it sounds like real drums. Or at least, like, a drum machine that doesn't sound like video game music.
Right.
Like, a lot of drums in video game music sound like they're made for video games.
Yeah.
This sounds like it was made for the radio. And I think Yuzo Koshiro was trying to go with that vibe when he created music, especially.
Well, that was his favorite music at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he was looking to recreate that on the FM systems with the Genesis and the Mega Drive, and then repeat it on the SNES.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Koshiro also composed ActRaiser on the SNES. Totally different vibe.
Right.
You know, it's more of a rock or orchestral-based soundtrack, and he nailed that one, too. It's considered one of the best on the system.
Definitely.
So these are two different sides of the spectrum, same hardware. You know, if you want to hear more about Koshiro's work, we talked about his entire career.
That's right.
Played some of our favorite tracks from his older PC-88 stuff all the way up to, I think we went up to like Vita or 3DS, you know, the more modern systems.
Yeah.
And you'll hear in that episode just so many different genres and styles of music and all absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, no, Yuzo's one of my favorite composers. Really good stuff. The game is a newer version of the Adventure Island series, so if you're familiar with it at all, or if you're not, here's a little bit of a refresher. There is a character known as Master Higgins, and he's basically hanging out with his girlfriend Tina, and all of a sudden this guy kind of appears on a broomstick, kind of looks like Kamek from
Kamek,
from the Yoshi's Island games, and kind of shows up and he's like, hey, I'm gonna turn Tina to stone, and he does. And my favorite part of that intro is Master Higgins is just like frozen himself, no expression on his face. Like, you know, normally with these types of games, especially these very like anime-ish type of games, there'd be like some sort of expression, like their face would just be like, oh no, or like, oh my god, what'd you do? And he's just looking at like, so like, you know, he's just like really casually like, oh, you're stoned now, cool. I mean, you were my girlfriend or whatever before, but now you're stoned.
Guess I'm gonna have to go rescue you again.
So he jumps up, like he just like very nonchalantly like stands up, holds up his arms, and he's just carried away by like a pterodactyl, and that starts the game. So
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a fun game. The only thing I will say is I'm a little disappointed that the life bar that you used to use to collect fruits as you go along through the game, you're running around. It's a action platformer style game, Mario influenced, obviously. You're going around, you're collecting all this fruit, and there's a timer on the top left, these bars, and essentially what you're doing by collecting fruit is you're filling this bar back up, so that way you don't run out of time.
Yeah, you're not given enough time to beat the stage.
Right, so you have to keep collecting fruit.
So you have to keep collecting fruit.
The unfortunate part is that previous Adventure Island games also used this bar, this time bar, as a health bar. So if you got hit, your time bar bar would go, your health or whatever time bar would go down. Unfortunately, not so much the case in this game. In Super Adventure Island, it's one-hit kill, which is brutal because the game, even though it's simplistic in terms of style and design, it makes it a much, much more difficult game by making it a one-hit kill.
And yeah, your attack abilities are pretty limited too. You can get a couple different kinds of weapon, but if you end up with like the hammer, you could only throw it in kind of like a downward arc.
Right.
And there's enemies that attack from all different directions, so if you're stuck with a particular weapon, you might not be equipped to defeat enemies that are coming from above you. So it's really difficult. You usually get one mid-stage checkpoint to start if you do die from there. So, tough game, but once you get the hang of it, you know, the levels are pretty short and the enemies are kind of few and far between, so they're pretty easy to memorize.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you're going to be focusing on while playing through this game is platforming. I would say platforming is the bigger struggle than enemies.
Most of the enemies you can pretty much dodge.
Right. Or you can attack, and, you know, they're pretty easy to attack.
While you're still running, you just kind of chuck something at them and go.
But, yeah, as far as platforming goes, you're definitely going to be tripped up, because you could do a super jump, or you could do a regular jump, and sometimes you really need the super jump. And I always feel like you don't go fast enough in this game. Like, when you're on the skateboard, you could jump on a skateboard, this power-up, and you could run around and do that. But in my opinion, you're not fast enough in this game as compared to the other Adventure Island games.
Yeah. One of the fun things about this game kind of reminds me of Tim Follin's Solstice soundtrack, is that this game, you know, with that little cutscene that you were describing before, there's this very simple kind of hula Hawaiian style sound. It's just like two square waves like playing a little tune, and you think the music's going to be really simple in this game, and then when you get dropped into that level, you're like blasted with this awesome, you know, 90s hip-hop style music.
Right.
And same thing with Solstice, is that it starts off like da 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 da, and then those arpeggios kind of blast you at the same time. So it's almost like those composers know what they've done and they're kind of playing with your eardrums a little bit.
Right.
All right, let's move on to our next track. We're keeping it retro and keeping it fun and fresh.
So the next track we're going to get into is Outrunners. We're going to jump onto the other side of the spectrum for the 16-bit era. This came out on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive in 1994. The track is Magical Sound Shower, and this is a classic track. Take a listen. Welcome back. That was Outrunners on the Sega Genesis. The game came out in 1994, and that track was called Magical Sound Shower by Hiroshi Kawaguchi, Junko Shiratsu, and Takayuki Nakamura. So we talked about these composers before, but as far as the track itself goes, I feel like it has a Latin vibe to it.
Oh yeah, totally. Very samba.
Yeah, samba, Latin, yeah. But this is totally one of those, like, drive around in your car, like,
Definitely. Well, this is an arrangement of the original Magical Sound Shower from the original Outrun game. Uses a lot of the PSG chip, so very square wave, but there's definitely FM bass, definitely FM percussion with a few hints here and there, but I think that main melody is all kind of like Sega Master System style stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I like it. I dig it. I dig it a lot.
You dig it a lot?
A lot.
I like it a lot.
I've not played this one, I gotta be honest. But I have seen quite a bit of video footage of it, and it seems like the pop-up is really bad.
Well...
I know the game's running very fast, but it just feels like it's more like jerky motions, like you have to do like quick left, quick right, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I wanted the camera to be pulled back a little bit.
The one thing about the Mega Drive version or Sega Genesis version is that it's split screen regardless of whether you're playing single player.
I saw that,
or two player.
It's kind of like a versus.
And there are
mode,
also very big gray bars in between your screens, so you're only getting a little sliver of the screen to play with. And that was one of my problems too when I was playing it, is that there aren't a lot of signs telling you which direction to drive in. So all of a sudden you're hitting these really hard turns left and right, and it doesn't really tell you. So you're constantly flying off the roads unless you've got these roads memorized.
Exactly.
So I wasn't very impressed with this game.
I like the older Outrun games. Yeah, and the newer ones too.
I knew that this was an arcade port, or a port from the original arcade game, so I booted up MAME and loaded that one up. The arcade version is much better.
Oh, yeah.
What it does is they came in sets of two, so essentially it's like two sit-down driving cabinets kind of glued together.
Right.
So the game, MAME emulates both games at the same time because they basically run off of one hardware.
Right.
So the cool thing is if you have two screens hooked up to your computer, you can set it so each screen is on a different monitor. So if you're playing two players, you can play basically one player on each monitor kind of competing against each other like you were in the arcade.
Neat.
That was a lot more fun. That game also has different arrangements and different composers than the Mega Drive Genesis version does. So you're going to hear two different versions of Sound Shower and a lot of these other original tunes that are in this one. But, it's a lot of fun. A lot of these composers are Sega stalwarts. They've been composing with them forever, and, some of them are still with Sega. So they have that very Sega sound to them, especially this one.
Hiroshi Kawaguchi is no stranger to the podcast, but specifically he worked a lot with Yu Suzuki, and so they kind of worked together and crafted some of the most, well-known games for Sega, like Space Harrier, Outrun, and, Afterburner. Those were just, boom, boom, boom. They came out, within a couple years of each other.
He wrote one of my favorite soundtracks of all time, Power Drift.
Yeah, Power
fantastic
Drift.
Music in that one.
Back in 1988. Worked on Sword of Vermilion, worked on Rent-A-Hero, Outrunners. He did some work on Metal Fangs, Sonic the Hedgehog, Dragon Ball Z, VRVS, Cool Riders, Wave Runner, Le Mans 24, Virtua Fighter 3 TB he did sound support on, sound programming. Then he jumped to Sega Rally 2006. I mean, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but yeah, he's done a ton of work. His last project was working on Protect Me Night 2, which still has not come out in the US, but that's the sequel. That's the Yuzo Koshiro sequel. Then also Takayuki Nakamura is also a Sega guy. Worked on Virtua Fighter, E-SWAT, City Under Siege, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. He did the Mega Drive version of that with Hiroshi Kubota. Dick Tracy. He did the Game Gear version of Shinobi, Streets of Rage. He did sound programming on Virtua Fighter 2, Daytona USA. He was the sound director on the Saturn version. Virtua Fighter Kids, Virtua Fighter 3. He's kind of well known as a Virtua Fighter guy, and that kind of continued with Toe Ball 2 and Air Guys later on. So he's done a bunch of other fighting games like Kabuki Warriors. He's done Kengo 3. He did some puzzle games like the Luminous series, the Meteos series, Every Extend Ultra. So he's
quite a portfolio.
He's very well known, and he's done so much stuff. His last game was Rodea the Sky Soldier, which was a Wii U and 3DS game that came out. It also came out on the Wii as well, only in Japan though.
Nice. So Outrunners was Junko Shiratsu's first game back in '94. She followed that up with The Hybrid Front, which was a fantastic soundtrack. We've heard from that in the past. Worked on Knuckles Chaotix. She's well known for doing the soundtrack for Panzer Dragoons Y, 100 Swords in 2001, Astro Boy in 2004. Her last known credit was in 2006. She did sound effects for the Phantasy Star universe. So not too many games, but what she's done has been very, very good.
Yeah. I like the newer Outrun games. I think that they're really good.
Them. Yeah.
The Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast is getting up there in price, unfortunately. I mean,
I play that on my Xbox because it's got the widescreen progressive mode. It looks fantastic when you do it with component cables.
Really gorgeous game, so it's a lot of fun, and the music is great. I really haven't heard a bad version of any of these Outrun songs.
No, they're so catchy.
Oh, yeah.
You just hum them forever.
Yeah, so the perfect driving music for your summer days. What do we got next?
Next up is... we don't feature too many Wii games on this show, so I figured we'd do Wii Sports Resort. This is Golf Results from Ryo Nagamatsu. Eddie, what are you doing on the computer again? It's a beautiful day outside. Go out and play.
But Dad, I'm in the middle of an epic match. If I quit now, they'll ban me for a week.
If you don't stop playing video games all day, I'll ban the computer for a week anyways. Come on, your brother is bored, and he wants to play with you.
This frisbee isn't going to throw itself, you know.
Ugh, fine. After this one match.
Good. You need to get some exercise. Whoa, awesome headshot, dude.
720 no-scope off the side of a mountain. Woo!
Only 3 more points to win the match. You got this, bro. Hey, Logan, come check this out.
Go, Eddie. You got this, bro. There's a bad guy behind that tree.
Keep it up, yeah.
Ed, Eddie, Logan, what are you doing on the computer again? It's a beautiful day outside. Go out and play.
But, honey... Welcome back. That was Wii Sports Resorts with Golf Results from Ryo Nagamatsu. That came out in 2009, of course, for the Wii. One of my favorite Wii games. You know, I picked this one because it's so bright and summery, and it just kind of reminds me of sitting on the porch with like a wind chime in the background. And a lot of the songs in this game, I feel like, you know, especially on the results screen, you just kind of click through. You're like, oh yeah, I got 5 or 6, or I beat you by 2 points or whatever, and you just kind of go to the next screen. But you really listen to this song, and it's really, really good. Yeah, still sleeping?
Man, that track put me out, man.
You know, you're just kind of swinging in a hammock.
Seriously, that's what I picture.
Very sleepy. It's got spring summer feel to it.
This like 70s vibe.
A little bit.
Like
okay, I can see it with those violin swells that come in like 15 seconds in.
Definitely like early 80s. Like this is like the theme to like Dallas. You know what I mean? Like, you know, da 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 da.
Where the helicopter's flying over the mansion.
Yeah.
And
It's just it's good stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely very sleepy, very relaxed. So it really fits with the game. And you know, it's perfect for if you're laying in a hammock listening to this podcast on a summer day.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I've not played Wii Sports Resort. I've only played Wii Sports.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sports Resort is fun because, well, it was one of the first games to use the Wii Motion Plus.
Right.
So the controls are much more accurate than in the first Wii Sports game.
Table tennis.
Yeah, it's got ping pong, it's got biking, it's got sword fighting, which
like
is fun. It's like
fencing,
a fencing. Eddie and
yeah.
I love to play that together. The whole game takes place on Wahoo Wahoo Island. And it's kind of a upgraded, enhanced version of the island that appeared in Pilot Wings 64. You know, how everything kind of took place around this central location. And the same thing happens in Wii Sports Resort.
Man. I thought that was the Dead or Alive island from like the Dead or Alive,
Beach volleyball
games.
Wahoo Wahoo
That would be
Island.
awkward.
Isn't that what they used to call it in like the dating game?
Wahoo
Whoopee?
Wahoo.
No, they was Making Whoopee. That was
Whoopee,
what
right,
it was called.
Right. Whoopee Whoopee Island.
That's a different game.
Heyo.
Yeah, Wii Sports Resort is a lot of fun. The music is great. It's all very kind of sleepy. You know,
Relaxed.
Nintendo made these games to be family friendly.
Right.
And so the music needs to appeal to just about everybody. You're not going to hear electric guitars or dubstep beats or, you know, anything like that in these games. Ryu Nagamatsu's been in the Nintendo biz since about a decade now. He started off with Wii Play in 2006, Big Brain Academy in 2007.
And both of those are very similar to each other and very similar to Wii Sports Resort.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think they were really going for that sound.
Yep. He worked on Mario Kart Wii in 2008. He's been doing like one soundtrack a year. Wii Sports Resort in 2009, Mario Galaxy in 2010, skipped a year and did Nintendo Land in 2012, Link Between Worlds, Legend of Zelda in 2013, spent 2014 working on Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, and then worked on Mario Kart 8 in 2014 as well.
right.
So he took off running, man. From 2006, it was a high-profile game, and then onwards and upwards. But I can tell, you know, obviously, even from this game, which is only was third or fourth game, really great instrumentation, really nice music. It just kind of fits. This soundtrack is kind of like one of those games that fits so well with the game, you just don't really even pay attention to it that much. It just kind of gels with the visuals and the
Right.
action so well.
Yeah, I mean, musically, I wanted a little bit more out of his soundtracks overall. I think probably his best is Link Between Worlds. But even that, all the instrumentation on these newer Nintendo games is very floaty.
Yeah.
Very, like...
No aggression whatsoever.
No aggression. It's very just relaxed and chill. I mean, aside from like maybe like Star Fox, the Metroid games, F-Zero, those types of games.
Well, like in Nintendo Land, he did a lot of the arrangements
Right.
of those themes, which the Nintendo Land soundtrack is one of my favorites from the Wii U so far.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. Let's bring us into our next song. What do we got coming up?
Our next game is Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, continuing with the Nintendo sound. On the N64, this game came out in 1998, and it's Gerudo Valley by Koji Kondo. Let's take a listen. Welcome back. That was Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the N64 classic, which was released in 1998, and the song was called Gerudo Valley by Koji Kondo. Koji Kondo needs no introduction. We've played him tons on this show. So if you don't know who Koji Kondo is, what are you doing here? Mario, Zelda, he's created some of the classic soundtracks. So as far as this song kind of has special meaning to me, at least I would say. This was one of the last Zelda games that I remember like being addicted to, like playing through, nonstop until the end. After that, I just kind of, I don't know, my interest in Zelda has kind of waned. I still like Zelda quite a bit, but it's one of those like, okay, I gotta buy a Zelda game. A new Zelda game came out. Buy it. All right, let me play a level. All right, this tutorial's awful. Like, I would say Link Between Worlds was a really great return to form. That was one of the last ones that I like really wanted to play through. Unfortunately, I lost my 3DS and my copy.
I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was really far, and so I ended up rebuying it almost immediately when I rebought the 3DS. I bought the 3DS XL, but I haven't gone back and started playing it again. So one of these days I'll do that. But anyways, back on topic. Gerudo Valley is one of the first times that I remember like associating a song with a genre, like Spanish Latin guitar, like classical Spanish guitar, really good stuff.
A lot of castanets.
Yeah.
Very authentic music set for this one.
Really good. I mean, you got those like horse footprint, like the horse,
like the castanets,
yeah, just those kind of bring in the song, and then it kind of just kicks into this Spanish guitar, and then you've got these horns that kind of come in a little bit later on and kind of really fill out the song. It's just a really beautiful, strong
like a
song.
flamenco band, like a lazy flamenco band, just kind of playing the song in the background while you're eating some street tacos.
Yes. It doesn't sound like anything else Zelda. Like, this was one of the first times when you were listening to a track from Zelda and you were like, oh, this isn't just orchestral, or isn't like, could be a potentially like metal song or rock or anything. It was just like, wow, that's Spanish guitar. I remember driving around with my grandmother when I visited her. This was probably about a couple years before she passed away, and she moved out to Arizona, and so we were driving around like Tucson listening to Spanish guitar music. Nice. So like anytime I hear this song, I think back to driving around the desert, going from museum.
Well, it's fitting music for that area.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, totally. Cool. And it was like the middle of January too, so even though it was January and it was Arizona, it was still like 75 degrees at like 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm going outside and she's like, what are you doing? She's like this like little, old like Long Island Jewish lady. She's like, what are you doing? You're going to catch your death of cold. And I'm like, Grandma.
It's springtime for us in Connecticut.
Well, no, it was January, so it was like freezing. So I brought like my winter coat and all these clothes, but I knew it was going to be hot, so I brought shorts. So I'm like walking around in shorts, like, this is awesome. She's like, put some jeans on. So that was good stuff. I love this game though, and the soundtrack is fantastic. So if you haven't played Ocarina of Time, go play it right now. And we're back.
I never played it, so.
You never played Ocarina?
No.
What?
No. Zelda.
Get out. No. So yeah, Ocarina of Time's just really good. It's you can't deny the classic Zelda overtones. I still prefer Link to the Past to it, but I can appreciate what Ocarina of Time did. But it's definitely it's weird because
it's the game that all future Zeldas got compared to.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. Well, it was the first like there were no real like major 3D adventure games until Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Like Ocarina of Time was like unbelievably instrumental to the series and to video games in general. So it's one of the big reasons why it's like the highest rated game on Metacritic.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And I am looking forward to the new Wii U Zelda or NX Zelda or whatever system they're going to end up putting it on.
It's funny you say that because I'm so like past the point of caring.
Yeah.
Like it's been delayed, and we know nothing about it. So I'm sure we'll see something in the coming weeks. Actually, E3 is this coming week.
Right.
Which
so by the time this show
airs,
probably already know a bit more information than we do now.
So we'll have time traveled.
Let's move on to our next game. This is our first kind of obscure title of the day. This is Kono yo no hate dekoi wo utao shujo yuno, otherwise known as Yuno, a girl who chants love at the bound of this world. This is a PC 98 game that came out in 1996 using the OPNA chip. And this is Hearth by Ryu Umemoto, Ryu Takame, and Kazuhiro Kanai.
Welcome back. That was Kono Yono Hate de Koi wo Yuta Shoujo Yuno. Jeez, that's long. A girl who chants love at the bound of this world. 1996 was the release on the PC-98, and it uses the OPNA chip. The song is called Hearth, and it's by Ryu Umimoto, Ryu Takami, and Kazuhiro Kanai.
Correct.
Yes.
Kazuhiro...
I know nothing about this game.
No,
so.
I know. Ryu Umimoto and Ryu Takami were both the composers, Ryu Umimoto being the main composer on the game.
Didn't one of these guys work on Ground Seed?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Both.
They both
yeah,
did. Right.
And Rusty and a lot of those really popular
high energy
PC-98 soundtracks. Fantastic use of both, the PCM samples for the drums and the FM and the PSG for the, the melodies, and just fantastic composers in their own right. Unfortunately, Umimoto passed away from illness in 2011, so we're not able to get any more soundtracks from him. This game is a visual novel that includes time travel and also some adult content. And from what I understand, remember in Back to the Future,
adult content like nakedness?
Yeah,
okay.
like sex,
right,
like hentai stuff.
Right.
So remember when Marty McFly in Back to the Future goes back to the past and meets his mom, and his mom's got the hots for him.
Right.
But, Marty's all weirded out and
pushes
her away.
Right.
From what I understand in this game, that doesn't happen. You kind of meet your relatives in the past, but then things kind of happen between you. So it's...
Ew.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Ew.
That's in the PC-98 version. This game was also released on Windows and for the Sega Saturn, but they took a lot of that adult content out for both of those releases, so I'm not sure how they kind of worked that into the story, but I don't know. There is a remake being made for the PS4 and the Vita. It should actually already be out in Japan or will be out very shortly. It was slated for spring of 2016. Keiichi Yonayo, who took over Umimoto's soundtracks after he passed, is actually doing the arrangement for the new games using Umimoto's original work files, and so enhancing them and kind of adding his own flair when necessary. And you can actually go to uno.jp and you can check out the direct comparison they have between the arranged version of the soundtrack and the original FM soundtrack.
Good. Cool.
Yeah, and it's really cool to listen to, and they did a really good job with it. I just like this track because it just feels so cozy. I don't know, that bass is nice and warm, and it's got a nice drum beat, very complex rhythm.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the "That's What Friends Are For" lyrics to start
That's
coming.
What friends are for. Yeah, no, I get that, actually.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't think about that until now. Now I can't unhear it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm not sorry. Yeah.
It's cool. But what kind of got me was that lead instrument is almost like a very high whistle and felt very like cowboy country style to me. So that brought me memories or images of like the desert and
I'm gonna sneak into your house while you're
locations.
asleep
and whistle in my ear
and like, put like headphones on one ear, and then the other ear I'm just gonna be like, keep smiling, keep shining, like singing the lyrics, like whispering the lyrics into your ear.
Nice.
Sweet nothings.
Sweet nothings. I don't even want to wake up from that lovely dream.
You're gonna
just
wake up.
Stab me in my sleep.
You're just gonna wake up like screaming, like, "That's what friends are for!" Like,
what?
Your wife just hits you with a frying pan. Just go with it.
I hate you. Anyways. So remember also in Back to the Future when Doc was teaching Marty about timelines and he drew these little trees about, how he went back in time and then forward in time and split off. So there's an actual menu in this game that is a timeline tree.
Does somebody say Great Scott?
If they do, it's in Japanese, so I wouldn't
Great
really...
Scott.
Yeah, it's
no,
it
could be in katakana. I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyhow, but you can jump, you can kind of travel back and forward using this time tree to get yourself to different results from different times. So I guess you have a lot of control over your time travel. It seems like a really neat game to play. There's no English translation, unfortunately, but I would love to bang my great-grandmother, That would be really cool. I couldn't even finish that with a straight face.
I just gave Ed this look like, who are you?
In a game, not in real life.
So you'd want to bang your great-grandmother in real life?
No, I said in a game.
In a game.
In a video game.
So if I created a game where Ed has sex with his great-grandmother, you would be cool with that?
I would be interested in exploring the potential outcomes of such an event. Time paradoxes and stuff. I love time travel sci-fi. So...
But it requires you to have sex with a family member.
In a video, it wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be like a pixel version of me. It would be a character.
It would, though.
Banging his or her great-grandmother and then exploring the results of that, like... If it creates a paradox, like what would happen if that kind of thing, if a child were to result in such an event or that kind of deal, like that would be interesting to me. Never mind the grossness of the act happening, you know what I mean?
So I'm taking applications for new hosts for PixelTunes Radio.
And I'm starting a new Pixel Gross Radio.
Pixel Gross.
Competing podcast.
Welcome to Pixel Gross Radio, a podcast where we have sex with our grandmas.
Video games and video game incest.
Yes.
All right, I'm done with this game.
Moving on, let's get away from that sort of time travel and into a different realm of time travel. How about seeing in the future? Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. This track is called Colony 9, and this is by the always impressive Yoko Shimomura. Let's hit it. Welcome back. That was Xenoblade Chronicles for the Nintendo Wii. And that track was Colony 9. The game came out in 2010 in Japan, 2011 in Europe, and 2012 in the US.
And we got shafted.
We almost did. Luckily, there was a movement called Operation Rainfall, which I was actually a part of, that we all wrote in to Nintendo to let them know, hey, we want this game.
I almost thought you were going to say you all rode in on your horses.
Yes, we all rode in on our horses and then rode in on our letters. Yes. So, as far as Xenoblade Chronicles goes, it has a lot of composers, which we're going to get to in just a brief moment. I'm going to talk really brief about the game, and then we'll talk a little bit about the song itself. The game is an RPG that came out for the Wii. It's one of the few RPGs that came out for the system, but it's really amazing, really, really fantastic. It kind of mixes a real-time World of Warcraft style gameplay mixed with traditional JRPG. In my opinion, this is the evolution of JRPGs.
Okay.
In all honesty. You play as a character named Shulk, And Shulk is basically this kid.
That's where Shulk came from.
Yes.
Okay.
Shulk came from Xenoblade.
I always saw his name in Smash Brothers.
Oh, really?
Who is this dude?
Yeah, Shulk is from Xenoblade Chronicles.
Okay.
Essentially, the characters in this game are living on these previously living, breathing, like, giant Titan robots. The Bionis and the Mechanis. And so...
God bless you.
Thank you. These two robots fought, and eventually they basically died. They both died. So their corpses remained, and life began on these giant robots. It's kind of like the Earth, where Earth was a thing, dinosaurs were on it, and then people kind of showed up. So it's kind of similar. Not to get too deep into the plot, in all honesty, and I know I say that, but I promise I'm going to...
I was going to say,
I always say that, but then I dive really deep into the
then
plot.
we end up with everybody's blood type.
Right. Breast size, blood type, favorite hobbies. Shulk really likes crafts. Shulk is holder or wielder, or the latest wielder of this weapon called the Monado. And this weapon, he ends up finding out, can tell the future, but it happens completely random. So he'll be using this sword, and he'll be like going into battle, about to attack these enemies. Then all of a sudden, this cutscene will play, and it's like it's kind of like telling him what the future could hold. And so he knows, oh, okay, I've got to dodge this attack, otherwise I'm going to be murdered.
So it's like short foresight abilities.
Yeah,
okay,
pretty much. It's really neat. All the characters are really cool, like just really solid, excellent writing, very well done. So if you're looking for a solid RPG to play, definitely check this out. This particular track, Colony 9, is the place that Shulk and his friends Dunban and Fiora live. So it's attacked by this group called the Mechon, and there's this one in particular really nasty baddie called Metal Face, and he has like a... Well, they all have British accents because the whole thing was redubbed in British English, right? Really cool. Like, all the characters are great. All the enemies are great. What's really awesome about this game is all the worlds feel living and breathing, and they feel like when you're walking around, everything is like streamlined, like seamless. So all the locations that you travel from and to, it's not like a hub, like a map, where you're like, okay, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. In the beginning of the game, you're just traveling from place to place, so it really feels like you're on an actual, like, real adventure. It's really cool.
Very open world.
Yeah, it's very open world-ish. So, but as far as the music, the song is just, I think it's incredible. It's very relaxed, very chill. Those violins are just fantastic. And the whole soundtrack is phenomenal.
Yeah, very, very harmonic guitar strumming.
Yes.
It felt like a very rich, deep song.
Bongos, like really deep and lush and bright. The whole song just gives this real cool summer vibe, and most of the locations that you travel through, at least in the very early stages in the game, are very outdoorsy. So you spend most of your time outside fighting monsters. What's really cool is you'll see a monster in the distance, and it's very similar to like Chrono Trigger, where it's like real time, where you'll see a monster really far in the distance, but it looks like a giant, like, you know, dinosaur or something like that, like a giant hulking monster. And you can go up to them, and that's when you can begin fighting them. So if you don't go anywhere near them, they're just in the background chilling.
Gotta do their own thing.
Doing their own thing, like just being background and stuff. And it's really cool to see.
So that's kind of like where the World of Warcraft thing comes in, because there's a certain distance away you can get from a mob that it will start to be aggressive towards you.
And the combat, too, is very World of Warcraft in the sense that all your spells and all your attacks are at the bottom of the screen, sort of. And so you can control each character for what they do, but everything's done in real time. So there's also like spells where you can combine forces and stuff like that, very similar to Chrono Trigger. I got a very like Chrono Trigger vibe from this whole game. Like, there's not a lot of RPGs that do that for me, but this, I sunk a ton of time into this game, almost like 40 hours. And I haven't done that since like high school. In one game, I haven't done that since high school. And unfortunately, I stopped playing because, you know, I think at that point, I was in the middle of moving, or I was about to move. And so I just kind of put it down and never picked it back up. So I'm really bummed, and I really want to pick it back up, but I feel like I'm going to be totally lost. So
Yeah.
That's Xenoblade Chronicles in a nutshell. As far as the composers go, there's actually more than just Yoko Shimomura. So I know originally we said just Yoko Shimomura. She was the composer.
I think she was the lead composer on the project.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And you kind of get that worldly vibe from her. All of her music, especially on like Street Fighter 2, which she's known for doing, has that worldly feel and sound to it. And so I kind of got that. It's like a lush Latin kind of, again, flamenco kind of Spanish guitar, samba sort of. So it's good stuff. She has done tons of work on tons of Capcom stuff. Originally did work on Final Fight, Disney Adventures in the Magic Kingdom, codenamed Viper, which both those last two she was uncredited on. Street Fighter 2 is her bread and butter. That's what she's known for. King of Dragons, Final Fight Guy, Live Alive or Live Alive. I never know how to pronounce that. Live Alive. Yeah, that's good. Tobal number 1, Front Mission, Super Mario RPG, Parasite Eve 1 and 2. Actually 2 she did any of the original music that appeared in Parasite Eve 1. Any of it that appeared in Parasite Eve 2, she was also credited for, basically. Legend of Mana, Kingdom Hearts, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. The list goes on and on. Definitely, like, big into RPGs.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts and the Mario & Luigi games are where she's really making her name for herself.
Yes,
nowadays.
currently, definitely. And she did Super Smash Brothers, of course, like everybody else. Final Fight, Double Impact, she was credited for that, although I don't really know...
Probably just for the original material.
Yeah.
Simon Vickland did the
arrangements?
Yeah, the arrangements for that.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Okay. Tomori Kudo is credited for literally 3 things. Xenoblade Chronicles, Code of Princess, which was a 3DS, kind of like Guardian Hero style game. Supposedly did electric bass, electric guitar, and acoustic guitars on that. And also Super Smash Brothers for the Nintendo 3DS, specifically the 3DS. Did music arrangement on that. Hiroyo Yamanaka worked on Final Fantasy IV Online, received special thanks, so probably had a hand in that at some point. Was the music composer for Bomberman 64 The Second Attack, which is getting very pricey. Xenoblade Chronicles, and Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS.
Tomori Kudo and Hiroyo Yamanaka are both employees of Ace Plus, which was a company contracted to do the music for this game. Kenji Hiramatsu was the 3rd member of Ace Plus, and again, worked with Ace Plus doing Bomberman 64, The Second Attack, like the other ones did.
Right.
And then also worked on Xenoblade Chronicles in 2010. That's about all he has done for music as far as video games go. Manami Kiyota, she worked on Shooter Space Shot in 2000. Xenoblade Chronicles, she was a member of the chorus in 2010, and then did some music arrangement for Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. And our last composer, Yasunori Mitsuda,
no stranger to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Secret of Mana, 7th Saga, Romancing Saga 2, Chrono Trigger, Xenogears, the original game, Chrono Cross, also Bomberman 64, The Second Attack.
Shadow Hearts, Legaia 2.
10,000 Bullets, Kid Icarus Uprising,
Namco
Wizardry
Capcom.
Online, blah, 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 blah.
Everything ever.
Fantastic arranger, very orchestral stuff. You know his name if you're any sort of a fan of video game music.
He brings the house down. It's good stuff.
Totes.
I need to get back into Xenoblade Chronicles. Maybe I'll do that this summer. Probably not, but maybe I'll do it. What's the final track on our list?
Final track. Can you believe it? I picked a Aniku Mizutani song. This is Family Tennis Advance. This is the Hardcourt theme. It was released on 2002 for the GBA. And we're back. That was Family Tennis Advance, released on the GBA in 2002. That was the hardcore theme. This particular track was composed by Iku Mizutani, but Tetsuari Watanabe and Kohei Matsuoka also worked on this game. This was kind of a game that I just came across randomly and really enjoyed the soundtrack, did some research, and found out, hey, that's one of Mike's favorite composers, so may as well feature it.
Iku Mizutani is my man.
Yeah.
As I said in a previous episode, I meant to say my man.
All of your mans.
Yes, all of my mans. Yeah, just fantastic stuff. You know, I've never heard anything that he's done on the Game Boy Advance, so it was really cool to hear this track. It's not unlike anything that I haven't heard before in terms of sound font. Like, it sounds like something from like Mario Golf.
Yeah, or
You know what I mean?
the Sonic Advance games.
Yeah,
I think
Sonic
it uses
Advance.
that same kind of sound set.
Definitely. So it doesn't sound as brash sounding as his Game Boy Color stuff,
Yeah.
but it's good stuff.
Yeah.
I dug it.
Nice harmonic, very playful, kind of like an acoustic rock kind of sound to it.
How's the game?
The game is tough.
Is it?
Honestly.
Yeah?
I did, the menus are all in Japanese, so I kind of muddled my way through it as best I could.
Right.
But you really need to be right on top of the ball in order to hit it. The timing is very difficult to get a hang of. It feels like, and I mean, I only used one character. There are a couple characters to pick from, but I picked one of the guys with, it was kind of like an all-around style character. And just getting to where the ball is when it's hit to you is really tough. Like, I was only like 10 feet away from it, and they would smash it, and then I would try to get to where it is again, and I would never be able to reach it in time. So, there's a dive, but you don't go very far. Right. So it just felt like the characters weren't fast enough to keep up with the ball when it's being returned to you.
That's a shame.
I don't know. I couldn't get the hang of it. I played for a while.
Yeah.
Until I at least heard this song and figured out, where it played. It was okay. I really used to have a lot of fun with like Virtua Tennis.
Yeah.
Back in the day, those were a little more arcade style. Your character would kind of automatically go to where the ball was, and it was really just up to you to hit the ball at the right time and in the right angle.
Those tennis games were great.
Yeah, so
like
this
all
one
the
is
Virtua Tennis. Even Super Tennis, I think, on the Super Nintendo was pretty good.
Yeah, that was
if
a
I
great
recall.
game too.
Yeah.
But this one just felt like it was more of a simulation style game, even though it was kind of cartoony.
Like more realistic.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of gameplay, but like the style still
pretty
looks
complex
very
gameplay.
cartoony. Interesting.
So, for a name like Family Tennis Advance, you'd expect something to be a little more simple and user-friendly, so...
And the award for the most bland sounding Game Boy Advance
tell me about
name
it.
goes to, was it Family
Tennis Advance. Yeah.
Oof.
I just felt it was a good summer thing, and I've been to a couple, because the Pilot Pen Tennis Tournament is in Connecticut. It's very close to us, like one town over. So I've been with friends and family members a couple times to go see the tennis tournaments in the summer.
Sure.
And I just remember it being like middle of July,
Insanely
August.
hot.
Insanely hot.
Yep.
Really kind of reminds me of summer and just being drenched in sweat and watching this ball go back and forth. A lot of fun, though. You get to see a lot of the big tennis players up close, which is kind of cool.
I used to play tennis, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
So you took an arrow to the knee?
Yeah. No, I was told that I could be actually really good if I put the time in, and I just didn't put the time in. So, that's what happens. But I enjoyed it. It was fun. Tennis is always really fun. A lot of running back and forth.
Yeah, we used to play it in school, gym, in high school, and I had some fun with it, but never really wanted to play it outside of that.
Iku Mizutani, no stranger to the podcast, probably my favorite composer. He has done some amazing work. Action Man on the Game Boy Color, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on the Super Nintendo, 2 other Power Rangers games on the Game Boy Color, Power Rangers Time Force and Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. Done tons of sound driver work with Hiroyuki Iwasaki. So, definitely no stranger to the podcast. You will hear more from him in the future and forever.
Totes.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so Kohei Matsuoka, kind of a Capcom dude, started on Summon Night in 2000, did a lot of sound effects for Resident Evil games. Resident Evil Code Veronica and Code Veronica X. He did sound effects for, composed the music for International Soccer Excite Stage 2000 in 2000. And then worked mainly on like the Summon Night games. Family Tennis Advance came out in 2002, so Summon Night Swordcraft Story, Summon Night 3, Swordcraft Story 2, Swordcraft Story Monogatari, all from 2002 to 2005. He worked on all of those. And then his last credit was Summon Night 5 in 2013, credited as music as well. And their third cohort, Tetsuari Watanabe, some Disney games, Disney Pixar Monsters Inc. He did sound in 2001. WWE Road to WrestleMania X8 in 2002, Metabots, the Metabee and Infinity versions of the game. He did sound effects and sound data. Those were both released in 2003. And his last title was in 2005. He did the Full Metal Alchemist Dual Sympathy games.
I believe Iku Mizutani also worked on that WWF game, Road to WrestleMania X8.
Yeah.
If I recall.
Yep.
Yeah. Neato.
Very cool. Yeah, that was a GBA game as well. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear that. That would be neat.
That's going to do it for our last track and our summer jams.
Now I'm breaking a sweat. Whew. Need to get some lemonade.
Yes, lemonade and go eat some popsicles outside and run around until you can't breathe anymore.
That's every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, what?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyhow.
Thanks for tuning in, and again, you can listen to this podcast as well as all other episodes on pixeltunesradio.com. If you like the show and you want to show us what you think about it, then check us out on iTunes. You can give us a rating and tell us what you think of the show and what your thoughts are on it.
Also, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/pixeltunesradio. We post all of our shows there. We post other content from our shows there. So sometimes we'll talk about games or composers or videos, and we post them all up there in either separate posts or attached to the post that goes with this show. We have lots of video game composers that hang out there and they post their own stuff. Other video game music fans post their own stuff. Feel free to join and you can converse with us and all of our fans and all of the PixelTunes community.
That's right. You can also check us out on youtube.com/dongled, where you can watch not only PixelTunes radio episodes, but also Dude, You Haven't Played This Game and a new series that I've created called Noob Repair. And Ed's got a little something as well called Impulse Project.
Yeah, I do another podcast with my buddy Brian from Pixelated Audio. It's called The Impulse Project. We cover music from the demo scene and the tracking community. So lots of chiptunes that aren't necessarily from video game music, but music that definitely deserves its own spotlight as well.
Word.
So, next episode will be a surprise because I haven't figured out what it's going to be yet. But
kazoo.
Oh, kazoo music. That
kazoo
would be perfect.
music. Yeah.
We will just hum video game themes on the kazoo.
Video games that have kazoo music. I think it's like every Nintendo game. I think every single song would be a Nintendo
Banjo-Kazooie.
song. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Stay cold or stay chill or stay
Get yourself
warm.
a nice, tasty, iced adult beverage.
Yes, Mr. Tasty. All right. See you in 2 weeks, boys and girls. Stay cool.
Peace out. And welcome back. That was Wii Sports Result, the golf results theme from Ryo Nagamatsu.
You said Wii Sports Result.
Oh. That was awesome. All right.
The results of your Wii Sports
yes.
is negative.
The results of your entire game.
You are infected with Wii Sports results.
Shut up. All right. Welcome back. That was Sports Retard.
Sports Retard.
All right. Let's try this again.
Third time's a charm.